Hey there. Did you know that the ocean is pretty cool? When I was little, I had the option of what cool young boy things I can get into. There was the obvious stuff, dinosaurs, trains, cars, space. But what I clung on to was, well, sharks. I had the choice. I would either buy a book about space and, the solar system, or I could have gotten a book about sharks. This was one of the biggest decisions of my life. At the whopping age of 6 years old, my mom asked me to pick between two. I chose sharks. And, well, I don't know. I love sharks, and by process, I guess, I love the ocean through that train of thought. You know what, here's a fun fact for you. Did you know that hammerhead sharks are shaped like that because it helps enhance their senses when they're hunting? The poor salmon has only its handy-dandy eyes to work with. Meanwhile, their predators are using the Byakugan to give them 360-degree vision, allowing them to sense electrical currents underwater. That's unfair, man. But sharks are just cool like that. Or maybe just hammerhead sharks? Cookie cutter shark's pretty cool. Either way, when I was young, I also liked video games. In fact, like is a bit of an understatement. I couldn't go 5 seconds without thinking about games. When I played Minecraft, I would go underwater and stare at the boring squids that existed back then before the ocean update. Man, people are really lucky that they get the ocean update, but whatever. And I'd think about all of the cool creatures that existed back then. Either way, around that time, I saw a video. A Let's Play video. From the big green-headed Irish man himself, Jacksepticeye. Wait. That video came out 10 years ago? Am I old? Oh god. Either way, looking back at what was actually covered in that video, it was an old, buggy, and generally empty version of the game Subnautica. But that didn't matter. I was entertained, and I'd watch YouTubers play through every new update that the game dropped. Reaper Leviathans, Ghost Leviathans, the Cyclops. Oh my god, dude, I love the Cyclops. It is so cool. Like, you have this big underwater vehicle that you could steer around in. It tells you, "Welcome aboard, Captain." And it's just cool, man. More games need to have that. Maybe I might figure that out myself. We'll see. It wasn't until 2017 that I actually was able to get my hands on the game and play it for myself. But if we really try to think about it, what is it about Subnautica that makes it so good? Like, sure, the game takes place on an ocean planet, and imagination can do a lot of heavy lifting early on, but take all of that away and you still have something good. So what is it? Well, for starters, atmosphere. It's a very vague term, I know, and it's hard to pin down because atmosphere is comprised of a lot of different things. It's comprised of art, it's comprised of music. Pretty graphics also play into it. It's a combination of a ton of different components that all blend together to create something that can evidently speak for itself. And this can be immediately seen from the very moment you leave your escape pod in Subnautica. As you exit your escape pod and see a vast ocean in front of you, your eyes are immediately drawn to two things. The water, of course, but also the massive wreckage of a ship that you just jettisoned out of. The player could be thinking of a million things, but regardless of what you may be thinking, you'll inevitably have to do one thing: take a dive. And when you enter the water for the first time, every single sense of the player is being targeted all at once to paint a vivid picture. From the audio abruptly, yet intentionally transitioning from splashing to underwater bubbles and ambiance filling your ears, to the visuals of sea life, bubbles, and water surface, all visually telegraphing you one thing: you are underwater. Subnautica's atmosphere results from a strong vision on all fronts, that culminates in a perfect underwater environment that clearly conveys different senses of emotion, from awe and wonder to fear and terror. Subnautica demonstrates a clear understanding of all of that. But then again, atmosphere alone doesn't make Subnautica the best underwater game. After all, right off the top of my head, I can name another underwater game that came out in 2017 that had incredible atmosphere. In fact, some may argue that this game has better atmosphere, or at least art direction, than Subnautica. Abzu is an underwater game made by the developers of Journey. It demonstrates incredible art direction and visuals that make my heart gush just looking at it. Alright, I'm actually coming in here to hijack my previous script since I was going to go on a bit more about how Abzu's art direction alone doesn't exactly make it comparable to Subnautica, but I'm actually going to take all of that back. Abzu is a beautiful game, and you should try it out. It's extremely linear, and its main flaw is that due to its linear nature, it doesn't exactly have a replayability value in the same way that a survival game like Subnautica does. With all of that in mind, back to the video. Subnautica has great atmosphere, but that's not all it does well. How about the design of the game, There was a great GDC talk by the developers of Subnautica back in 2019, where they talk about how they designed the game. But to sum it up for those of you who haven't watched it or just want a refresher on it, Subnautica's design is focused on the idea of rewarding the players intrinsically, instead of extrinsically. An intrinsic reward is the feeling of accomplishment you feel on your own for hard work or a personal accomplishment. In Minecraft, this would be the feeling of accomplishment after making a house for the first time. An extrinsic reward is typically something that is more tangible. An example of that would be earning experience and loot when you kill a mob in Minecraft. You guys know Minecraft, I can use that as an example, it's fine. Subnautica's design is focused around the idea of letting players discover things for themselves while subtly guiding the player forward with an invisible hand. We can see this subconscious guiding through the design of the world. For example, remember the start of the game, where you saw the aurora off in the distance? You may not have realized it at the time, but the developers planted a seed in your mind. And that seed feeds off your curiosity until eventually you think to yourself, I want to check out that ship over there. But wait, that big old spaceship over there is leaking enough radiation to turn you into a starfish if you're not careful. If you want to safely explore the aurora, you need a radiation suit. And to make a radiation suit, you need lead. So you start exploring nearby biomes and gathering resources. But wait, your escape pod has limited storage, so you need to build yourself a spot where you can store all of your resources. And the only way to do that is by unlocking the build tool by scanning fragments, and so on and so forth. This is all extremely intentional, but it also doesn't feel like a checklist. Sure, some aspects of the progression are linear, but there can also be multiple threads of progression going on at the same time. In fact, this doesn't just apply to the progression of survival, but rather, the storytelling of Subnautica as a whole is multilinear. We haven't even gone into the story of Subnautica yet, but we can see how this hands-off approach to the player progression is handled within the story as well. At some random time, the aurora blows up, and the player will need to go down the path of trying to make their way over to the aurora and repair the leaking reactors. At any point though, the player can repair their escape pod's radio and hear a broadcast message from the other escape pods, which the player can also seek out at any time. The player's infection, the sunbeam, the Degassi storyline, and many more things can all be occurring at different points depending on the individual player's preferences. Each player has their own unique story that they're experiencing. It just depends on when you experience them. It's a real shame that all the things I'm currently praising Subnautica for seem to not carry over to the follow-up game, Subnautica Below Zero, but I'm not going to open up those can of worms. I don't like that game, which sucks since I love the Arctic setting, but let's not sit on that for too long. Okay, there is still so much more that I can talk about here, but I'm not trying to make this a 30-minute video. I just want to quickly shout out some of the creatures from Subnautica that I think are pretty cool. Reaper Leviathan, iconic, absolutely love the design. In fact, throw on every single Leviathan, with the exception of the dragon. I don't like the dragon. The dragon feels a bit out of place. design-wise, but that's just a personal preference. And honestly, I know I just trashed on Below Zero, but the Shadow Leviathan is my personal #1 design in terms of Subnautica underwater creatures, and maybe just all the Leviathans in general as well. Really love that guy. But anyway, I felt like I wanted to make this video since there's been a lot of stuff going on with Subnautica 2 and a lot of behind-the-scenes shenanigans. I'm wishing the developers the best of luck there. Who knows, maybe by the time you're watching this video, Subnautica 2 is an incredible gem, or the worst thing ever, or whatever. All I know is that at least Subnautica remains a perfect gem of an underwater game. And if you guys have any underwater games that you think are worth, shouting out, or anything of that effect, I'd love to hear about them. I've heard about Soma before. I've heard of Barotrauma as well. I've been meaning to try out those games. And if you guys have anything else, let me know. I'd love to talk about it and hear your thoughts about other underwater or ocean-based games. Aside from that, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all again very, very soon. Bye-bye!